Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
We talk about this track with reverie. We talk about this circuit as one of the holy grails when it comes to endurance racing. This is not endurance. This is a sprint. After Jacob Reed took his first salvo of the season last time out at Mugello, we head to the Panhandle of America. Welcome to Sebring International Raceway and the 6th round of the 2024 iRacing Grand Prix Tour. Here with us at SimSpeed TV. It's Jake Sperry and Caitlin Penny here to take you through all of the action on what is a scorching day here today in Sebring, Florida. And Caitlin, this a circuit which naturally is going to be difficult for drivers here to challenge with the nature of the lumps and bumps of this former airfield. This is America's Silverstone.
Absolutely. You mentioned the word bumps, and to be honest, that is the word on everyone's mind right now because, my God, is this track bumpy. There is a reason why Formula One has not been here since 1959 and why you don't tend to see cars such as single-seaters racing here, at least not top-level single-seaters, and that is simply because the suspension would be rattled to bits. It's just about handleable in a World Endurance Championship car, but even then, it's right on the edge of adhesion. And yes, that is absolutely going to be on every driver's mind. There you see the track map. It's changed a little bit over the years, but it's still the recognizable Sebring circuit. 3.7 miles or 6 kilometers if you are not using the American system, so to say. And then of course names such as Sunset Bend, the final turn there, and Big Bend and Collier, just corners that every driver knows and dreads.
And you can see on the right-hand side, the very far right-hand side, that runway strip that goes through. That used to be part of the old circuit when this track was run all the way back in 1959 in Formula One World Championship colours. But this is a track which has gone through a few modifications, hasn't really had too many changes as of recent. This will be a 51-lap race here today, 190 miles, 306.5 kilometers worth of running. They do have to use the minimum of 2 tyre compounds, no rain activated in this series, and of course they will have to make that mandatory stop, of course, and that pit lane lost time of 28 to 30 seconds is a little bit on the longer side here today compared to some other circuits we've seen. But tyre life's going to be interesting. We were looking at the track temperatures. We were expecting about 40 degrees to be where we're expecting one stop versus 2. And it's currently 41 degrees at in-sim time of heading towards about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which says to me, Caitlin, this could either be a 1 or a 2 stop race.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. It's a relatively long lap. So yes, 15 laps on softs. Looks to be about right compared to where we've seen it at other tracks. But then, of course, you have to consider that this track is just longer than some of the other ones we've been to. So, in reality, the tyres are not too much of a concern here. You still want to be on the best ones at any given time. And right now, we're looking at the championship standings, which looks suspiciously like the qualifying order that I can see right now.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment, but Jordan Gronkowski is top of the iRacing Championships, 1,373 points. He's been winning the highest strength of field races. Eduardo Radice just behind in second, with Jacob Reed in third position. It's then Anthony Catt and Volta Lux fourth and fifth, with Connor Pula, Darren Parker, Jorge Martinez, Edward Apari-Ari, and Paul O'Regan making up the top 10 there. 4 drop rounds in that series. None so for the SimSpeed Championship, where Jordan Gronkowski holds his margin right now of 27 points. He will guarantee the championship lead coming out of today and 2 weeks' time to Imola, but the question will be how much by the time that is all said and done. Eduardo Radice, a distant third on 50 points, with Jorge Martinez missing last time out, and also, by the looks of things, missing this one as well. Darren Parker and Volta Lux in a race for 5th at the moment, with Connor Pula and Timothy Vaughan 7th and 8th. Adam Gleeson finds himself 9th. It is a 3-way tie for 10th, but Leopold Steneros, by the fact of his 5th place finish at the second round of the championship, means that he holds that 10th place at the moment, does the Swede. But qualifying is just about to wrap itself up in about the next 5 seconds or so, which means that we will take this opportunity to run on over to the starting grid with how everybody stacks up here today at Sebring. It is the championship leader, Jordan Gronkowski, on the pole, 129.041, and only a fraction faster than Eduardo Radice, who will be alongside him on the front row. The reigning champion and last time's out winner, Jacob Reed, goes from third, with Kent Nielsen in 4th position. Row 3, housing the Austrian Volta Lux and Nick Burke with a great qualifying on home soil. You've then got Florian Kammeyer looking to try and buck the trend of his lap 1 incident. He starts 7th. Darren Parker will have to go from 8th place, with George Van Rensburg in 9th position, and Paul O'Regan rounding out the top 10. Michel Rudeau will go from 11th, and it'll be Ray Griffioen in 12th position, and behind him, the bottom driver by iRacing, Norton Motta, squeaking in 13th place. Anthony Catt will be there in 14th alongside. It's then Jason Green, and some would say the fastest baker from Australia. It's Thomas Hind, who finds himself in 16th position, with Mark Van Dalen in 17th, and the last driver not setting a time, that was Adam Webb. He will go from the back of the grid today in this 18-car field. It's split 3 times this server, so that will mean that drivers will be looking around at everybody, and what is a frantic start to the lap, with the open style corner moving away from the concrete and onto the asphalt, which does make this circuit rather unique. Jordan Gronkowski then on the soft, so to Eduardo Radice. Mark Van Dalen starts on the hard. Everybody else is going to go on a medium compound tyre here today at Sebring. Lights out then for round 6, and we get ourselves underway. And it's a great start from the 3rd row of the grid by Volta Lux, who will look to go to 4th and then to 3rd, and it's going to be unchallenged Jordan Gronkowski through turn 1 out on circuit. Reed having to be really careful as they tiptoe through turn 2 and into 3, 4 and 5, this important tight sequence of corners. Lux having to yield, and so too will Kent Nielsen, almost chopping the nose off Darren Parker, who's made a great start.
Indeed, a very impressive qualifying performance from Kent Nielsen to be 4th on the grid, and he's managed to hold that off the line. So that means we have the typical contenders up the front of the field, Gronkowski, Radice and Reed, with some relatively new names as well. Little wide there goes Jason Green in the background, but keeps it on the road. I'd also like to say welcome back to Darren Parker, who didn't make the last race, and is doing relatively well so far in 6th place. And also I'm delighted to see Thomas Hintz in this race, because that is another driver that I have raced against personally in the past. Oh, looks like Jason Green has had a little grassy excursion, making his car slightly more green.
Yeah, Cunningham corner catches him out, and just like that, he'll drop all the way to the back of the pack then in P18. It is important that these drivers put in these quick lap times early here at Sebring. They've got a minimal amount of laps here, just the 51, and those on the softs will be trying to break be in play. So you got to keep that in mind as they all start trying to really ratchet and move on forward here through the gears, through the paces at the end of the opening lap. Spinner in the background there, just in the back. I'm not quite sure it was Kent Nielsen.
Well, he's done well to gather it up because he's still in 12th position. Unfortunately, I didn't see exactly what happened, but you don't really get away with spins at Sunset Bend to quite such a promising extent. But we're about to see a replay of exactly what happens. He comes through Sunset. It's going to be something to do with the bumps. There it is. Gathers it up. That's a really good save. Reminds me of Max Verstappen at Brazil back in 2016.
He had to be so quick onto the brakes and stop the car from snapping around, and he did everything in his power to keep the car pointing back in 12th position. He's still got a way to move forward here in this race. Top two now have broken clear, it seems now, of Jacob Reed. 0.8 of a second between the Scot and the Italian here, 1 and 2. At Sebring, Reed trying to give chase, then it's Lux, Parker and George van Rensburg having a great start to today's racing. Both he and Darren Parker up 3 spaces in the opening couple of laps. Anthony Catt up 5.
There's only 51 laps in today's race, although as far as the races are concerned, lap 3 is the most important. That's when the DRS is enabled, and we're about to start that lap now. Now, in terms of the DRS, this race circuit has never actually had DRS zones before, since no series that actually uses it has ever raced here. So I'm wondering, do we know where the DRS zones are for this one?
I would assume the Ullman Straight would be one of those said zones, and you'll keep an eye out here on the rear wings of these drivers to find it. There was a little look in the background at a pass. That's Ken Nielsen dispatching of Norton Motta, moving up then into 11th place and starting that comeback here in this one. Motta chasing around here on an important week here in terms of Brazilian iRacers, the 30th anniversary. Here's one of them through Big Ben here towards the hairpin, one of the overtaking zones, one of the 2 zones here. But a big weekend, the 30th anniversary of the passing of the legendary Ayrton Senna.
Yep, and you've just noted that is one of the DRS straights. Thank you very much to our broadcaster Jake Kennedy, who sent me a map of the circuit, including both DRS zones, the other one being the Ullman Straight, as you correctly predicted. So we're heading towards the second DRS zone of the race. Radice has kept himself nicely within a second of Jordan Gronkowski, so let's see what he can do here and whether he can take advantage.
You can see these drivers using all of the road, going beyond the white lines as they try and open up out of Gendebien and through the Le Mans corner. That's to try and open up the binders and get as quick as possible. That DRS there being available. This is going to be an interesting one in terms of how drivers are thinking about setting up the cars and what they need to do. I would expect medium downforce packages across the board, and there goes another little look to the inside. Anthony Catt on an absolute charge. He has dispatched on Michel Rudeau, but Rudeau not wanting to give this one up here, tries for a look in turn 1. Watch out behind, that's Ken Nielsen flying through, plus Florian Kammeier, who looks for the crackback, trying to get through at turn 3. He's not going to find it. That'll be a shame, but that would have been some great heads-up driving from Florian Kammeier. He's got Christoph Klinkmann in his ears as his spotter today.
Yeah, there's some good heads-up driving from pretty much everyone in this race. It's been relatively clean, because even though we've seen a couple of minor offs, a couple of spins, there hasn't been any serious contact, although hopefully I'm not leveling any commentator's curse on anyone else. One thing I am noticing here is that the drivers who started on softs are immediately taking advantage. They've pulled about 3 seconds out over Jacob Reed. For Reed, that's not too concerning. He's just got to keep as close to those two as he possibly can. And if they fight, of course, that will hold them up, and it will start to swing in the favour of the Mercedes liveried Formula 1 driver. But for the time being, the soft-tired runners Jordan Gronkowski and Eduardo Radice doing exactly what they need to do and pulling away in the lead.
Battle pack starting to form up and down the field. The run again out of Le Mans. Little twitch there behind from Michel Rudeau, and he'll go immediately to the inside. Watch the serpentine on the straight. We are in the month of May. Indy's coming up pretty soon, but now here comes the search from Kent Nielsen down to the inside, the hardest battler in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour, as he will go sliding down the inside. Can't quite get 100% of clearance. Rudeau's going to try and battle back. A little bit of harvesting there from Kent Nielsen is going to allow that charge to the inside, but Rudeau will now have to try and find the battery somewhere else on the circuit. Worth noting, Radice now with the purple check mark, the fastest lap of the race, and an extra SimSpeed Championship bonus point.
Indeed, of course, two different championships to consider in this one. The iRacing Championship takes into effect strength of field and all of the different splits that these drivers can find themselves in, depending on their iRating. And the SimSpeed Championship only concerns the top split, and is a sort of unofficial championship that we at SimSpeed like to keep a track of. Jordan Gronkowski is currently leading both of those, as well as this particular race, and is doing a good job keeping ahead of Eduardo Radice, despite Radice having the fastest lap so far. And we're currently looking a little further back in the field at some of the fighting in the lower part of the top 10.
Yeah, so Rudeau continuing his defence on the Flying Fortress straight through Bishop's Corner and into Gendebienne. Fast, 180 kilometers an hour through there, down to 150 clicks. Now looking to try and get back up onto the power, and now this is where Kent Nielsen will try again at Sunset Bend, the corner of 1,004 lines. The correct one is unknown to everyone. He sidles his way down the inside and gets the move done. Rudeau having to lift out of the power there for fear of understeering into the tyres. The updates to Sebring that have happened over the last year or so have meant that the grass patch that was there on the outside as a deterrent is no more. Speaking of grass deterrents, running off the road slightly there went Kent Nielsen through one.
Yeah, he's lucky the car's stuck. I've seen cars losing control there in reality. Never watched a race here on iRacing before though, so good to see that it's not an absolute death trap. You say that there's no correct line through Sunset, but that one was good enough for Kent Nielsen to get through on Michel Rudeau. May not have been the quickest line of everyone, but of course Rudeau cannot turn into the corner when there's someone on his inside. And talking of that, this is Parker versus Lux. Parker getting up into 4th position in the early stages of the race.
Massive kick of dirty air there through Collier Corner for Walter Lux. That pretty much said that for the Austrian, and Darren Parker now moves into 4th position and finds himself 4.5 seconds behind Jacob Reed. Another look here at the pass into Cunningham Corner. This is going to be where he leaves the room on the outside. Now watch this, he gets caught in the turbulences and he gets a big kick of oversteer as he went through, trying to battle with the vortices that go through. And there are some people that say that a Formula style car like this more represents an aeroplane than it does a race car.
Yeah, it's like an upside down aeroplane with the aerodynamics forcing it into the ground rather than into the sky. And of course that means that if you have an accident, it can represent a bit of an airplane crash as well. So hopefully we don't end up seeing too many of those today. But anyway, we're currently looking at Walter Lux. He was passed by Darren Parker on the last lap, and as he said, that doesn't just give him the disadvantage of being behind on the road, but also being behind and getting a face full of all of that dirty air. He wouldn't have had to deal with that with Jacob Reed, because Reed himself is getting away from the rest of the medium-tired runners. He's doing a great job in that number 1 car. And there's Darren Parker, similarly liveried to Jacob Reed. I always say that. It can be a little confusing when they're racing together. And you can see the different wings that are being used today as well. We had someone in the chat just now, Wesley Batista, very rightfully pointed out that the top 3 have the medium downforce or high downforce aero package, and then of course there's also a medium downforce and a low downforce package available. So a couple of different packages to pick from, and it's all down to driver preference here.
The flat bevel on the top indicates that there is a little bit less downforce there than what Walter Lux has got on his machinery. Yeah, there, that lower profile, that larger wing, trying to get more downforce through the car will definitely indicate that this is going to be one for him as he tries to go through. Watch out in the back. This is going to get big now as they rush through Sunset Bend. Hinz, Van Dalen making the pass on Ray Griffioen. Adam Webb is there as well, and it's side by side in front as there goes Norton Motta trying to get the pass done on Paulo Reagan round the outside of turn 1. Thank you very much. He'll make the pass and he will comfortably manage that too. That's brilliantly done. Behind that, Griffioen dealing with Mark Van Dalen in the year 1 colours as he now looks to try and charge through and make his pass. He's done so on the hard, and Van Dalen has used the first 7 laps of this race to really find a rhythm And now it's about this next phase of the race, which will open him up to opportunity. Speaking of which, you're not going to get many opportunities if you run off the road like that. Big amount of avoidance through the chicane for Adam Webb.
That will cost him 2 different positions lost there for Mark van Dalen. He is still the only driver on that hard tyre, so he's just got to hope that the strategy ends up coming to him later on. But that one is not exactly the way that you want to benefit from that. Back to the leaders, you can see that Gronkowski now has over a second from Radice, and of course 1 second is the buffer with which you can take the DRS when you go onto the straights. So Radice has now dropped out of DRS range, and Gronkowski can start to stretch his legs out in front in theory.
Eduardo Radice has had a really, really difficult run at the start of this season, and that's a very slow Adam Webb there in the number 13. It looks like he's had some problems heading through Gendebien corner, so that's put him a little bit further back. We'll take a look at where it's gone wrong. Now watch this, he's very high over that curb, and that is a massive smash into the barriers there, and that will be something that for Adam Webb he would have been very, very worried about. He will dive into the pits then and take an early stop. How much damage on that car is to be seen. He's got the black and orange mechanical flag, so I think here, Caitlin, that will be our first retirement of the race.
Yeah, that would definitely be an instant retirement in reality. Here's Michael Rudo in his first race in the top split of the Mercedes Formula Grand Prix Tour that we've seen so far this season. There are a few first-time races in this one. Nick Burke doing a great job in P7. I don't think I've even mentioned him yet. He's been kind of on his own, but doing a good job nonetheless. Norton Motter, I think this is his first race of the season. Thomas Hinz, first time in the top split, as well as Mark van Dalen. I do apologise if I've got any of those wrong or missed them in previous races. Haven't seen much of the likes of Ray Griffey-Owen, but this isn't his absolute first race of the season. But that's one of the wonders of having different splits in a championship like this. You do see a bit of a revolving door of drivers throughout the year.
Yeah, last season we had 97 different drivers reach top split at any given point. Very, very tight entry line from Michel Rudeau. And we'll take a little look at this through then at Le Mans corner. Whoa! Back steps out and round you go. Thomas Hinz taking an almighty roller coaster ride, able to get it pointed back in the right direction. But that would have been a massive snap there, and he would have been so unexpectedly arriving to it, because that is a place where you're trying to put the power down as early as you can. The moment you're slightly too aggressive on the throttle there, Caitlin, that's it. Car's just going to go, no, I don't like how much grip's trying to be put through the rear tyres.
I wonder how early Thomas Hinz got up this morning, the Australian, if he indeed does still live in Australia. I remember back in the day when I used to commentate him racing on RFX2, he was probably the only Australian racing in every championship we did, and he'd always complain about being woken up really early in the morning to compete. So I think we might have a competition between Thomas and our broadcast director Jay Kennedy to see who indeed got less sleep last night. But anyway, apparently yes, so Hinz does still live in Australia according to Jay Kennedy here.
Yep, so he would have got up very, very early in the morning to go out there and race. And here is a little look once again at opportunities to make some passes out on track. Rudeau just about is holding off Florian Kameyer's advances at this moment in time. Lap 11, Search just in front as well, as that will be Kent Nielsen to the inside of Anthony Catt. They just about caught up to Nick Burke, side by side, there's the contact. Kent Nielsen will go around, straight on will go Anthony Catt, and he will grab a tiny bit of tyre as he went through as well. Disaster, as that was very aggressive there on the pinch from Kent Nielsen, trying to command the corner.
Yeah, we're about to see a replay of that. So it's Nielsen on the inside, Catt on the outside. There's the contact. And you have to say that Catt there was right on the... Oh, he's hit the wall. He might have to pit, judging by what we just saw. Yeah, he was right on the outside of the track. There was nowhere else he could have gone. And unfortunately, he's been towed back to the pits there. So that's probably day over for Anthony Cat.
It's a long day. He doesn't have, so to speak, the black and orange mechanical flag as we continue watching Paul O'Regan, who has been knocking on the door every single race in and around that top 10 position, looking to score points. He is currently 12th in the championship as things stands, on 10 points right now, tied with Leopold Steneros and Marcus Pleschberger with his 5th place finish last time out, both of whom not here, which means that this is a golden ticket to the top 10 for Paul O'Regan. Here's another little look at something that's happened. I believe this will be Norton Motta then running a little bit too deep through the corner at Cunningham, which is so easy to do on an open circuit like this. The wind's gusting southwest, 25 kilometers an hour. They're going to be really feeling it here today at Sebring.
Oh, look at that, 75% humidity as well. I wasn't expecting that, but I guess this is Florida. Tropical storms, the Everglades nearby, and all of that. But anyway, so rather muggy out there on a day like today. Hello as well to Connor Pooler, who's just joined us in the YouTube chat, saying gutted to miss out this week. Indeed, Connor, a regular staple of this championship. So whatever you're doing, I hope you're having a good day. And hello, of course, to everyone else tuning in on the YouTube chat. We've got a good old active audience there today. Probably the most active I've seen it so far this season. But anyway, still a race going on. This is Florian Kammeyer hunting Michael Rudeau.
Rudeau has done very well to keep Florian Kammeyer behind, realising that Kent Nielsen will soon be back there, trying to find a way through once more. Rudeau, the Frenchman, is doing pretty much everything in his power to try and make sure that this race stays as it is at the moment, with the top 2 currently on their own compared to everybody else, 1.3 seconds splitting them, and Jacob Reed sat back at about 7.5 seconds behind your race leader overall. Kammeyer getting close, staying in 7th gear here, heading down into that section, deciding against using that 8th gear out there. You can get some setups that do bottom out and will prefer that 7th gear. Little bit more use of the fuel by doing that, but that 8th gear, I think, is quite select, and the straights maybe not as long as what's needed for Kammeyer to go up into gear 8.
Yeah, and it's worth noting as well that Kammeyer's got a higher downforce rear wing, and that looks like a shunt into the pit lane, I'd say, for Mark Van Dalen. I saw the tyres locking up, so either he was just struggling to get it slowed down with that front-end damage that he's clearly got, or he's hit the wall on the entrance to the pit lane. But whatever the case, into the pits comes our only hard-tyred runner. Something's happened in Sunset here, or at least on the spin. And then does he hit the pit entry wall? There it is. Has he gone the wrong way to get back? Yeah, he's managed to go the wrong way down the track to get back into the pit lane, because the initial spin had missed the pit entry. So that's a little cheeky there, but he made it.
Yeah, he didn't get disqualified for it, so he will now dive into the pits, but that is also the black and orange mechanical flag, so that will be another retirement here today from Sebring. So Mark Van Dalen adds to the list of Anthony Cat and Adam Webb, who have decided that their races are done out there at this point. Charging onto the Ullman Straight is once more Florian Kammeyer, and he thinks about this time being the moment that he can make the move and he can jump the position, but he's got that difficulty here, that he's got all the pace in the world, but he can't use it because of the downforce packages there, as he knows that Michel Rudeau is doing everything right in terms of how quick he can go in a straight line, just defend the position once again into turn 1. Kammeyer's got the pace, but he's not got the ability to capitalize on it, and just like that, Ken Nielsen, the Canadian, jumps back onto the scene.
Yeah, I've noticed the last couple of laps, Rudeau's going very wide on the exit of Sunset, but he's finding the grip out there, getting the momentum, and that's got to be really frustrating for Kammeyer, who sees that clean track in front of him as he pulls out, but can't get through. What about up here into the hairpin? He's on the inside. That should be a bit more like it, and a little touch from Kent Nielsen as he finds the rear wheel of Michael Rudeau, who's coming back at Florian Kammeyer on the exit.
There, sticking his nose there was Ken Nielsen, and all of a sudden there's a chance to try and get back at Cunningham Corner. Rudeau is now looking to try and get aggressive here, and Florian Kamai's issue is he's got to build a gap before he reaches the straights, and he will use that drive off the exit, the confidence in the downforce to do that. Now, I do want to go up to third and fourth at the moment because Darren Parker has been quietly putting in a fantastic number of laps. Jacob Reed is finding those medium tyres horrible here today. He dives into the pits. He's the first taker of the lot.
Fascinating. We saw on the graphic at the start that 15 laps is about when we'd expect these soft tyre runners to pit. But Reed, of course, started on the medium tyres, and he is the first driver that we've seen making a pit stop without having damage, at least no visible damage. So slightly strange there from Reed, but we'll keep an eye on what his strategy is all about. He's onto the soft tyres now. Obviously wants that extra grip, feels that he can run them a bit longer. Should be a two-stop from here, yes.
Yeah, so that is going to be an aggressive two-stop. Jacob Reed here is going to really battle. He's got Paul O'Regan right out to the pits. Has to go around the outside. Tiny bit of contact there. Somehow keeps it pointed in a straight line. And the Pro Stripe has done everything but lose the car there. Paul O'Regan keeps it going. Here comes Norton Motta. Looking left, looking right. Nowhere to go.
The lowest ranked driver in the championship who is not driving like that. He's doing a pretty good job so far today. I've been impressed by his racecraft from what we've seen. And yes, he's all over the back of Paul O'Regan now. Goes to the inside. And after Reagan's little touch on Reed at the start of the lap. Oh, and there's a spin! And there's more contact as he goes into the side of Paul O'Regan's car. Both of them caught out by that, and both of them losing handfuls of time.
Rear locking there from Norton Motta, who's got one SimSpeed Championship point from the season opener at the Nürburgring, a 10th place finish, no start since then, but that was a little bit clumsy, and Thomas Hinz now will try and find a way around Bishop on the Flying Fortress straight, doesn't have the confidence to commit at the very, very committal Gendebien corner.
Luckily for the two drivers involved in the contact, it was very square contact, shouldn't be too much damage. Walter Lux is in the pits now as well, so it looks as if the medium-tyred runners are actually getting a bit sick of those tyres quite quickly. Thomas Hinz now goes to the inside of Norton Motta. Norton, whose tyres may have seen better, and into the pits in front of them as well goes Paul O'Regan. And that's immediately after the contact, so hopefully not too much damage. Out of the pits now comes Lux, and he is also on those soft tyres in repetition pretty much of what we saw from Jacob Reed a lap ago.
Yep, so those soft tyres I think are the preferred ones out there as we watch this 4-car battle now, which could soon be 5 out there at the moment, with Jacob Reed jumping on the back. Ray Griffey-Owen is getting close to this one as well, and Florian Kamai is proving to be a little bit prickly to overtake. At 31 seconds, it's one of the longer transit times on the lane. It's 28 to 30 seconds that we're expecting here of transit, so the front two should have this cleared if they were to decide to come in and make their pit stops here today at this moment in time. Darren Parker wouldn't. In comes Eduardo Radice.
Radice in as well, and this is the first driver to pit from the soft tyres. Now, we've seen the other drivers going for another set of softs, but it might be different considering that you have to use 2 different compounds of dry tyre. So we'll have to keep an eye on Eduardo Radice here. There's fighting going on further back. George van Rensburg gets up into 3rd position, but that of course is because of Radice's stop. As for Reed and Lux here, they're being bunched up together with these other cars. There's a car between them now, but you see, and Reed goes fastest, but you see, this is the problem when you pit this early on. You're pretty much guaranteed to come out behind another car. There's just more cars in the race, and they're more bunched up together, so you're always guaranteed to be held up like this.
But he will get the DRS, and so too will Michel Rudeau, who has been proven difficult to overtake, but Jacob Reed's got a similar package underneath him, dives for the inside at the hotel hairpin, and he will comfortably make that pass and jump back up then into 8th position. He'll have Florian Kamai next on the list after Kent Nielsen's pass, and he'll know that he will want to chase Eduardo Radice, who is also on a 2-stop here today. And there's the look from Norton Motta on Thomas Hinz as they scrap for 12th. Hinz on the outside of the Fangio chicane is going to hold on. Motta trying to find a way through. The door is firmly slammed shut. Nowhere to go as he overcooks it, misses the apex, and Hinz continues to hold the place. Watch out, Ray. Here is Michel Rudeau, who's lost another.
Yeah, so Ray Griffioen, I think, has just passed him, hasn't he? Unless I'm very much mistaken.
He has.
But, it's over 9th and 10th position. You can see just in front of them, Jacob Reed now getting up alongside Florian Kamai. He'll have that done before the corner. Another important one for Jacob Reed as he pushes on. And I tell you what, has he... No, Radice was ahead of him before, wasn't he? Because he started the race on those soft tyres. I don't think he's got much closer to Radice in all of this, so I'm not sure if that's how he would have wanted it to play out. And was that Kent Nielsen having a little run through the class?
No, that was Rudeau going off there. So that would have been the small off there. That's a big amount of contact. Jacob Reed finds himself, and round will go Kent Nielsen again. And this time at turn 5, he finds himself planting the barriers. Jacob Reed had so much pace, he had nowhere to go to use it with Kent Nielsen, who got caught up on the curb through 3 and 4.
Surely Reed's got damaged. Watch this. He's just run into the back of him. He goes straight into the back of the slower car in front of him, and surely he's going to have to make a pit stop after that one. You saw the front wing come off. Now, sometimes the damage can kind of correct itself as you go along, but it's usually what you see first that's more representative of how the car's actually going to be handling. What an unfortunate collision there, but it's always the driver behind who has the responsibility to keep it clean. He needs to provide extra space for slower cars who may be braking sooner, and unfortunately in this occasion Jacob seems to have neglected to do so.
Yeah, and that would have been something very difficult to predict. He stayed on the right-hand side. Kent Nielsen never moved, and that was going to be one of those where Jacob Reed's going to look clumsy no matter where you try and place the car. If you're over-aggressive to the inside and the door will try and be shut, or you do exactly that. He has continued on, though. We'll take a look from his perspective. Now, this will give you an understanding of what he's got to deal with. Tight over the curb. He's trying to position to that inside. He knows where the DRS marker board is, but you've really got not much time. It is such a short shoot. It's almost a straight that isn't a straight heading through turn 4 towards turn 5, and immediately he looked to try and pounce back and get the pass on Florian Kammerer. Here's a little look on the SimSpeed replay on Hinz versus Motta out there, which still continues. Hinz has just about held on to the place, but Motta, sweeping around the outside of Sunset Bend, was able to get the move done, but he ran wide, and because of that, Thomas Hinz was immediately able to get him back on the front stretch. And you know what? Tit for tat, he'd go around the outside himself. What a pass by Hinzy.
Some good racing going on further back. They're outside of the top 10 for now, but that will still matter for iRacing points. Look at this, they're still battling. We've got the red car there of Norton Motta versus the blue car of Thomas Hinz. Hinz now has the advantage as they head up through turn 10. And still has the advantage on the exit. So very good racing, nice and clean this time.
I tell you what, Jordan Gronkowski has just had to turn the wick up here because Darren Parker was closing in at a rate of 1 second a lap over the last couple of laps as we watch Rudeau and Volta Lux. Of course, Lux has already made his stop. You've got those who haven't going through. Eduardo Radice, the fastest lap of the race, and this will surely mean that when Gronkowski decides to make his stop, Radice will inherit the race lead overall, will the Italian. Here's Nick Burke. That is the hard-charging Jacob Reed, who did have that contact. It looks like he got away with it, so he will count his lucky stars. One of his 9 lives used up, so to speak, if he was a cat of 9 lives. And Nick Burke realizes that this is not his race right now. Doesn't want to be racing up against Jacob Reed. Lets him have it through the big bend, the Gurney bend, and through to the hotel hairpin. Gronk is being forced to push. Look at that for the last 2 laps. 1.5 seconds on lap 17 and 18 from Darren Parker.
Yeah, but Parker's not his main challenger right now. Eduardo Radice will jump him when Jordan makes his stop. You were right to call that. So that means that there's going to be a little bit of a swing in momentum in this race. But the great thing about this race being such a long one, being a full Grand Prix length, is that of course there's still plenty of strategy to come. George van Rensburg is being mugged, so through on the inside goes the second seeded car, I think that was, of Who was that, actually?
Radice.
Radice, yes.
So Radice, they're making the move on George van Rensburg, who's having a really good race here today. Yet to make a stop, but George had a really, really tough 2023. He's trying to turn that around here. And this Sebring race at this moment in time, lap 21 of 51, he's doing fantastically. Look how much Jacob Reed in the background was pushing right up to the wall. He went there through the final corner. He is leaving nothing to chance right now as he tries to chase down. And on that last lap, Jacob Reed was, get this, a full 4 seconds faster than George van Rensburg.
Wow, I tell you what, you got to keep an eye out for whether Reed can jump Gronkowski here. I think he might be able to, actually. We're about to see a replay of just how close he got to the wall. Doesn't quite touch it, but my goodness, he's close there. And I swear, every year at the 12-hour, the IMSA race, we see one driver going a little over the limit and ending up in that barrier there quite heavily. So hopefully we don't see a repeat of that today, with drivers pushing it further and then smack. But it is a wall that very much invites you to take as much of the track as you possibly can. Back to the front here, Jordan Gronkowski still losing time to Parker. I'm a little surprised he's kept that so late, to be honest. I reckon he's probably setting himself up for a one-stop, and that would really affect the order of the race. But right now he's going to drop behind Radice and probably Reed as well.
Yep, so I reckon he'll be about 10 seconds behind Eduardo Radice if he were to come in now and make his stop. The issue that he's got is that Darren Parker here, who took 1.8 seconds out of him on that last lap, a 35-1 from Jordan Gronkowski, and it didn't look too untoward with the way that he was going about his lap. There was nothing that really screamed out, I made a mistake there. So this is really just the tyres starting to hit the proverbial cliff. Gronkowski will have to go on to a different compound than the soft. Darren Parker's got the option of however long he wants to go, he can go to the soft, and that's the issue that Gronkowski's got. He's on the inferior strategy right now to Darren Parker, who's reeling him in hand over fist.
And the only driver on hard tyres now is Paul O'Regan, who has been involved in an incident or two and is a lap down in the race. But of course, we saw at the start, soft tyres are expected to go about 15 laps. Ignore what you're seeing from Jordan Gronkowski. He is very much an outlier. Mediums are expected to go 20 laps, and hards, of course, 30. Now, that does tend to change towards the end of the race as the cars get lighter on fuel and as the drivers begin to conserve more. You tend to add, plus or minus about 5 laps to that. And as for the hard tyres, if you pitted now, you could probably run to the end on that. So I'm wondering if Gronkowski is just trying to extend for mediums.
Here goes Jacob Reed. He's thinking about which way he wants to go, and he's got to be so choice after the contact he's had with Kent Nielsen here today at Sebring. He doesn't want to do it again with the South African George van Rensburg. In comes Jordan Gronkowski from the race lead to dive into the pits. Here comes Jacob Reed to the inside of George van Rensburg, looking to make the pass. It's going to be 29 laps on a set of medium tyres, you'd expect, from Jordan Gronkowski. By the time he gets out, through goes Eduardo Radice, onto the mediums goes Gronk, and Jacob Reed will also now look at where he gets out for the exit, because he is also, despite his contact, leapfrogged Gronk.
It was close. If Gronkowski had pitted a lap or two earlier, he might have just stayed ahead of Jacob Reed. Now, Gronkowski is probably thinking to himself, if I could go that far on softs, I can go to the end on mediums. I reckon that's what his strategy is here. Darren Parker, meanwhile, staying out on the mediums. He too is extending his race, possibly doing a reverse Gronkowski, unless, of course, he pits soon for the hard compound of tyre. Norton Motta also into the pits as well. Still, the only driver we see on the hards is Paul O'Regan. I'm still going to keep my eyes peeled to see if anyone else does a similar thing. They use all of the track and more on the entrance to Le Mans, the penultimate corner there, and somehow get away with it without the game automatically pinging them for track limits. It must just be a place where you're allowed to do that, and that of course gives you the best possible run down the Allman Straight, the best possible slingshot effect with which you can attack your rivals. And talking of attacking, Ray Griffioen is on the back of Walter Lux now.
Yeah, that's Lux already found his way through on those soft tyres. Griffioen yet to come in and make a stop. those on a one-stop on the mediums. We're expecting him to go to about lap 30. That would be the ideal place. Get 20 laps in cool conditions on the soft tyres to go out and attack. That's what Darren Parker will be looking at right now on his set of medium tyres, which he is rushing about with at this point. 13 seconds, his margin over Eduardo Radice behind, who is running 32.7s, a 34.2 for Darren Parker. He lost a second and a half on that last lap, but remember that Radice will have to make an extra stop with how early he's gone through. So Darren Parker essentially is on the same strategy as Eduardo Radice, but he's got a 13-second head start.
So here is Eduardo Radice, Thomas Hinz in the pits meanwhile, and there's a move. We've got Walter Lux down the inside of Nick Burke and getting that position gained. Now that's important, of course. He's on those soft tyres. He should be theoretically quicker. And Nick Burke, I think, is yet to stop unless I'm very much mistaken. Walter Lux now P6. He'll be pushing on. You'll see the lap times falling as the race continues. Currently the fastest lap going the way of Eduardo Radice, and you do get an extra Sim Speed Championship point for that. But I'm very much expecting that to go the way of whoever the next leader is to pit for those soft tyres as Darren Parker continues on.
Just remember, it is, of course, only the top 10 that get that SimSpeed Championship point. We had Brad Newman last time out take a SimSpeed Championship point away from the top 10, but he finished 20th, so he couldn't bank it himself. Take a look at the track temperature now. All of a sudden, we started at 41 degrees Celsius here today in this race as Parker versus Radice is there. It's now down already to 37 degrees, which is more in the window of a one-stop strategy here today as we hit the afternoon here and in towards early evening in Florida. This track is only going to cool as this race goes on, and it favours more into the hands of someone like Darren Parker, who has been able to extend this stint out as long as possible. Kent Nielsen now dives into the pits. He's got no choice to here on lap 25 of his race.
Kent Nielsen coming in from those medium tyres. He will go on to another set of mediums, to maybe soft tyres. Right, now 26 laps on those tyres is pretty difficult. Gronkowski nearly managed it in the first stint. We'll have to see whether he is going for 2 stops on those soft tyres. I think that's probably the most likely, probably the safest at this point in time. Walter Lux now on the back of George van Rensburg, who is yet to make his stop. Lux needs to get past him as quickly as he possibly can, past the slightly distracting bright pink livery of George van Rensburg. Better exit there from Lux, and he'll get the DRS. This should be relatively straightforward down to Sunset Bend. The car not quite with the amount of overspeed he would have liked, but there he goes to the inside. Van Rensburg would be unwise to fight that too much.
Yep, grabbed it late, of course, because the DRS helping a bit more. Now into the pit. Who's that? That's Gronk. That's Gronk. Gronk back in the pits again. That's very, very early to jump down in. What has happened with Jordan Gronkowski? Did he get caught speeding or something?
I mean, it's rare. We don't tend to see pit lane speed penalties or anything like that. He stopped in his box. I'm sure the
front wing.
I'm sure front wing. So he's hit something, has he?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find where he's grabbed something out on track. It looks very unsuspecting out there overall, but he's obviously clobbered something to make sure that the front wing has gone through, and it is just the nose car. I wonder if he's just attacked the curbs too much. There, you really don't see it. Or has he run into the back of George van Rensburg here? Down the inside, into the hairpin. Oh, dear me, Gronk. Both the title contenders have run into trouble today.
Left it too late, just as Eduardo Radice did earlier. And unfortunately for Gronk, he's come off worse. So way down into 8th position goes the SimSpeed Championship leader. He would have been able to take slightly newer tyres. So soft tyres, 24 laps. He's done that once already. He can do that again. Here is Darren Parker and Eduardo Radice a little further back. Darren Parker now leads this race by nearly 10 seconds over Radice. It's looking good for him. But remember, of course, he still has to stop as well.
Well, so too does Eduardo Radice, and this, for the moment, for Darren Parker, will feel good. He's got himself still that margin, and if you think the window opens in about 4 to 5 laps' time, and he's losing 1 to 1.2 seconds a lap, he'll still have a 5-second margin by the time he dives into the pits to go on to the soft tyres to get himself home and hosed. Nick Burke has decided to make his first and hopefully only pit stop of the day in the Golf McLaren style colours that he will use to get himself away. He'll be out on a set of the soft compound tyres, and he will come out just behind Ray Griffey-Owen in what is 9th place. So Burke with a little bit of work to do in the final stages, knowing that still Van Rensburg, Kameyer and Parker are yet to stop in this race.
Beautiful livery on that Nick Burke car. It's the first time we've seen it this season, but you're right, it does kind of look like the Golf McLaren that they ran at Monaco a few seasons ago. There you can see it again. The thing I like about that as well is the coloured wheel rims. You don't see much of that, but I always like a good coloured wheel rim. Reminds me of watching saloon cars back in the day as a kid, the Renault Megans and Clio Cups and things like that would always turn up with such bright, shiny wheel rims and funny looking cars. And there you can see the different strategies that some of these drivers have made. The real outlier out of that bunch, of course, being Jordan Gronkowski, who's pitted twice as a result of that collision. He wouldn't have intended to, of course, but then again, no one intends to have a crash. And as for the leaders, as for Reed and Gronkowski, it feels a lot like the multi-class racing that sometimes takes place here at Sebring. And they're not quite prepared for that.
Yeah, Jason Green, the lap traffic there getting out of the way of Darren Parker, who leads this field outright at Sebring. Last time we were here 1 year ago, it was, of course, Andreas Henkel who took the victory around here, as Jordan Gronkowski says, well, if I can't win this race, I may as well take a SimSpeed Championship bonus point with me with that 131.6 on the board. He will be driving angry on this stint, knowing the mistake he made with George Van Rensburg.
Yeah, he's going to be driving angry indeed. You can see the fastest lap. It's a 131.6. That's only just faster than the lap we saw from Radice earlier on, but you only have to be slightly faster to get that SimSpeed Championship point. I expect he's still got some more lap times to put down though. His first sector is purple, so expect to see an even bigger fastest lap of the race from Jordan Gronkowski any minute now. Darren Parker as well should be pitting any minute now. He'll go on to soft tyres and run to the end of the race. We're really not going to see much of the hard tyre today. It doesn't appear to have been particularly popular. Of course, Mark van Dalen ran it from the start and then crashed. And the only other driver to have tested the hard tyre is Paul O'Regan, who we're watching right now. He's currently a lap down, unfortunately not a real contender in this race. And clearly softs and mediums are the tyres to be on today.
Well, this is the thing here, because the tyres that you've got right now in terms of the racing in iRacing, these tyres, soft, medium and hard, in terms of Pirelli tyre data, are the equivalents of a C2, a C3 and a C4 tyre. It doesn't change from track to track, Caitlin. They are locked for the season on what is a C2, a C3 and a C4. So there's no C1, no C5, which means there's no range that can change in terms of the racing. That's going to mean that we're going to see some very wild strategies at different circuits this season.
Yeah, it's why it's fluctuating from race to race. I'm sure we had more hard tyre runners at the Nürburgring, if I remember correctly. And at these other rounds, they haven't been quite
In
so...
he comes.
And into the pits now comes Darren Parker from the lead of the race. I would be surprised if he goes on to anything other than the soft tyres. And Eduardo Radice will take the lead away, but he still has to stop again as well, considering he's only used the soft compound so far.
Well, this is going to be about Parker versus Radice. Darren Parker looked absolutely wonderful on the medium tyres. Eduardo Radice, of course, was able to build a gap, but he's on a 2-stop here today, so he will have to come in once more, or he's got to stretch the soft tyres out an awfully long way between now and the end of this one at Sebring, which will make it feel like an enduro. Parker comes out crucially ahead of Volta Lux in third position. He's 20 seconds down on Eduardo Radice. He's 9 seconds down on Jacob Reed. But crucially, he is he's the first of the drivers on a one-stop strategy. And that will put him in the best place possible as Florian Kammeier now jumps into the pits.
Yep, Florian Kammeier also in, and he goes in from the medium tyres. I like the comment I've just seen from Eric Bursmer in the chat saying Gronk with the old 24-2-24 strategy. Classic. Yes, indeed. It'll be 24-2-23, I think, because there's an odd number of laps. But I definitely see exactly what you mean. I think at the current pace he's showing, he's still on for a top 5. Whether, of course, he can do better than that or not remains to be seen. But it does remind me a lot of the race at the Nürburgring, where he was involved in an incident earlier on, I think with Anthony Cat, if I remember correctly, and ended up having quite a recovery drive, flying through the field, but wasn't quite able to reach the podium at the very end. There is Gronk, still the fastest driver out there. His last lap was not quite his absolute best, but he was right up there. Another purple Sector 1 from Jordan Gronkowski, still pushing for that fastest lap. And just over 10 seconds behind the medium-tired runner, George van Rensburg.
Well, you'd say that Jordan Gronkowski will definitely get by George van Rensburg right now when he dives into the pits. Volta Lux, he should be able to leapfrog, but he'll have to hold him off in the later stages of the race when Lux goes on to another set of the soft compound tyres. So 4th place is definitely not out of the question. That's the lowest he's finished this season. He's had 3 race wins already, has one Mr. Jordan Gronkowski. The other race, of course, was last time out where he only managed 2nd. Another fastest lap. He is churning them out. 1:31.5 this time with that lap. By comparison, Jacob Reed's doing 33s. Eduardo Radice, mid-32s. Darren Parker, of course, is on an out lap at this moment. So this will be his first representative flyer at this point. But you really get the sense there with Jacob Reed that this is his race to chase down. And he knows any points he can gain right now heading to Imola in 2 weeks' time are going to be massive, especially if you can bring the championship lead battle gap down inside, crucially, of 1 race wins margin. In races he started this season, Jacob Reed has never failed to finish outside of the top 2. He's got 3 seconds and a race win.
Amazing. Of course, did miss out on the very first race of the season due to a disconnection before the start. That was a massive shame. And it's interesting that we're going to Imola in 2 weeks, with this being the anniversary of the deaths of Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger, of course. Michael Rudeau getting right to the back of George van Rensburg, very close one. But you're absolutely right. Jacob Reed has been exemplary since the start of the championship. The only reason that it's not pretty much dead level between himself and Gronkowski is because of that first race where he missed out. And I think Imola could be the start of a real championship fight between the two of them, depending on how the rest of today goes.
Jacob Reed took the title, missing 6 races last season. It was a wonderful second half of the season for him where he just clicked and everybody else couldn't find what was there. Everybody else this season has been able to match him in certain respects. Thomas Hinds getting the pass at Sunset Bend. He gets by Kent Nielsen, moves up into 11th position now in this race and 7 seconds off of the top 10, which for the Australian is going to be his next chase.
Yeah, Thomas Hinds, P11 currently, still in with a chance of the top 10 despite the spin we saw earlier on. And Hinds very much never
in comes Radice.
And Radice is in from the lead. That's what we expected to happen. Now, he's used 2 compounds, or he's used 2 sets of the soft compound of tyres, so he will need to use the mediums. And he'll be hoping that the likes of Jacob Reed and Darren Parker, etc., he'll be hoping that their tyres drop off the cliff towards the end of the race, because Radice will not necessarily be on the faster tyre at the start of this next stint.
Well, this is the race in a nutshell. Eduardo Radice will have to find a way past Volta Lux to get to Darren Parker. That's his big worry in this race if he wants his first one. But look out as he looks to get himself back out and going. He's on a set of medium tyres, which is massive comparing that everyone else is on the softs. Is that a mistake? A big mistake late here from Eduardo Radice, the wrong tyres at the wrong time in terms of what he needed? Or is this just a case of he needed to get onto those to satisfy the quota?
He did need to get onto them because, of course, you have to use all of these different compounds of tyre. We'll have to see whether the race comes back to him towards the end. I know Radice is quick, he'll be pushing on, but he is also one of the unluckiest drivers. We've seen him make a few big mistakes at inopportune moments so far this season, and he's been involved in a couple of incidents that haven't been his fault as well. So we're expecting more from Radice, and I wouldn't be surprised if he picks up a win or two soon. I don't think it's going to be today, I'm afraid to say.
Well, he is so reliant now on the tyres just falling off for Darren Parker. He started on the softs, he went to a second set of softs, he needed to run the mediums, and as such, he now finds himself past Paul O'Regan. Not much worry. One thing that will be in his back pocket, though, is that he will know he will be able to attack this set of mediums without worrying, and the next thing he doesn't have to worry about is Volta Lux, because he's into the pits.
Good stuff. So Lux coming in from the softs. Has he used the mediums so far, or is he going for another? Is he going for another set?
I think he starts on the mediums. There's only the top two
yes,
that started on the soft. So that then's going to be key. Radice has to use the mediums, and this is for Volta Lux, his final charge forward. It will be quite telling where he comes out, because Ray Griffey-Owen will fly through, and he's going to be right with Nick Burke, who is also going to slide his way up then another position and moves back into 6th place.
Good shout. Thank you to broadcast director Jay Kennedy. Indeed, only the top two, being Gronkowski and Radice, started the race on those soft tyres. So, of course, that does not include the likes of Walter Lux. Here's Darren Parker now, and you can see that he is reeling in Jacob Reed, and that's a quite considerable gap that he's bringing down. You can see his last 2 laps have been about 1.5 seconds faster on average than Jacob Reed. And the lap before that, he was potentially caught up in a little bit of traffic, or was just picking it up afterwards. And there is Darren Parker. So 4 seconds is the gap, and if it continues to drop at that stage, he'll be on him in 3 laps' time.
Remember, Jacob Reed was the first real taker into the pits. He's going to be one of the last takers, you'd feel, to go get tyres now. It's going to be a Herculean middle stint of his race, and he is trying to hold on here to what he can, knowing that he probably will go behind Jordan Gronkowski at this rate if he changes onto those tyres. But one thing that he'll know if he goes onto a fresh set of softs, he'll have a fresher set of softs than everyone else in front, and mediums of Eduardo Radice, so he will be able to attack. So for Darren Parker, this is pretty much his sanctum. He knows that all he's got to do is hope that Jacob Reed either pits in front of him or he finds a clean pass, and that his tyres play ball as Eduardo Radice tries desperately to stay in range. It was just 1/100th of a second's difference between Parker and Radice on that last lap.
Indeed, there's Darren Parker still absolutely flying. Eduardo Radice coming with him, and the gap continues to drop again. It's now just 3 seconds between Reed and Parker, which shows you just how quickly he is going. And I tell you what a spectacle it is to see these cars flying around Sebring. I've never seen a modern Grand Prix car racing at this particular circuit. You see sports cars here, you see touring cars here, and you even see junior single-seaters here. But of course, you never see the likes of these 1,000+ horsepower beasts, as Jason Green there gets out of the way of the cars coming through to lap him. Currently only 2 cars a lap down, 13 still on the lead lap. There's Eduardo Radice. But yeah, an absolutely beautiful sight, especially with the sun glinting off the cars down Sunset, through Sunset Bend and down the start-finish straight.
0.6 of a second taken off on that last lap as Green comes into the pit. That's a big one then. Darren Parker is being reeled in. Eduardo Radice is 31.7 to the 32.3 of Parker. And look at this gap now. Jacob Reed is starting to be reeled in, and this is going to be concerning now for Parker if he gets bottled up for anywhere short of half a lap.
Darren Parker, 2 seconds now behind Jacob Reed. Every time I mention the gap, it comes down by a second, We've got 16 laps to go. He will easily catch up to Jacob Reed. The problem, of course, is that as you start to get really close to the back of the car in front, you start to reach this buffer just before you reach the DRS zone, where you're starting to be affected by their turbulent air, and you start to catch at a slightly slower rate. So, Darren Parker has it all to do still, has to make the move cleanly and quickly. Jacob Reed will be cursing that collision he had earlier on, where he cost himself a good deal of time, maybe even damaged the front of his car slightly, but was lucky enough not to have to make a pit stop. The gap is about 1.5 seconds now as we go on to 15 laps to go.
Yep, and that gap to Eduardo Radice will continue to be clawed back. It is under 8 seconds. It is now down at 7.3, 31.8 from Radice. He'll take a 1/10.5 out, but Darren Parker's got the carrot out. At this moment, it's dangling on a stick. It's Jacob Reed in front. It is 1 second, but no DRS. He didn't have it at the line, and that's pretty large in terms of what he needs. Now, throughout the middle sector up the top of the circuit on the north side, through Cunningham, all the way to Tower, this is where Darren Parker is going to get the hold up.
Yeah, but this is also where he gains. He's going to get right to the back of Jacob Reed, and all he's got to do is keep it there until he gets to the DRS straight. You can see how quickly he's gaining. You can visually see it at this point in time. He'll be half a second behind him at this rate by the time they reach the straight. Little twitch of oversteer, but not too much. That won't affect him much. Through the penultimate, well, we're heading up to the penultimate corner, Le Mans, and then down down Ullman straight towards Sunset Bend. And you can see why they call it Sunset Bend, as the sky absolutely lights up, becomes a bit of a flashbang later on in the afternoon. There's the DRS, there's the slipstream. He's getting closer to the back of Jacob Reed's car, takes a look, and he's going to have to try again next time round.
He will. That was as late as you could possibly do it. The big wide line taken by Jacob Reed means he's able to hold. He doesn't dive into the pit. This one for the race lead. Then for Darren Parker, who has only one victory in the iRacing Grand Prix Tour. He picked that up last year, and he's looking for another one here today. This is huge for Eduardo Radice, who now has an ability to go out and chase down this gap. But DRS flap opens for Darren Parker through the Gurney bend, makes the pivot down to the inside. Can he fight it through? Can Jacob Reed? No, he can't. Darren Parker leads at Sebring with 14 to go.
There we go. So now the question, of course, is how much of his tyre life did he take out of that in the process? But of course, Darren Parker won't care about that right now. He will be elated to have completely clean air in front of him. He led by quite a considerable advantage at the very start of the championship at the Nürburgring. He led by about 13 seconds there at one point, but then dropped back. He dropped back and was caught. And in the end, of course, it was Jorge Martinez who won that race, who is not here today. Thomas Hint in the pits. Unfortunately, he's going to drop a little further back from the top 10. But on this occasion, Darren Parker has a much bigger advantage than he did then, because he's not just leading, he's leading late on in the race.
I will correct myself. It was a second at VIR, a third at Imola. He was 7th here last year at Sebring. He knows how big this is. This would be his first win in terms of sim speed coverage. 6 seconds the gap to Eduardo Radice and Jacob Reed. I don't know how long he can stay out on those medium tyres. Is he trying to take them all the way to the end?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, at this point in time, you have to start to consider that drivers will be doing that. Because if they have, or if they were planning to make another stop, say for the soft tyres, they probably would have done it 2 or 3 laps ago. So at this point, you've got to start to consider that anyone who's left their car out is considering going to the end of the race, and probably will.
Well, for Jacob Reed, he's already 24 laps on this stint on soft tyres. If he can somehow make a set of soft tyres last 37 laps here at Sebring, then my word, has he got something that everybody else doesn't. The key now for him will be, can he keep Jordan Gronkowski off of him between now and the end of this race? Because the podium is what this is all about. Eduardo Rodis, I don't think is going to be the factor here for Jacob Reed to worry about. He knows he can close in. That gap staying stable at around 6.1 seconds. Darren Parker knowing he needs to push, knowing that Eduardo Rodis will need to clear not only Jacob Reed, but the lap traffic of Norton Motta, who has DRS, who's quicker right now than Jacob Reed and wants to unlap himself, which is his right.
So here he comes then. Jordan Gronkowski has been catching as well. This, of course, is Eduardo Rodis on the back of Jacob Reed. Down the straight they go. And into turn 1. Jordan Gronkowski still with the fastest lap of the race as we're watching. Sorry, I was getting a bit distracted there because the timing screen isn't entirely lapping up with what I'm seeing, or lining up with what I'm seeing visibly on my my other screen. But that is sometimes the case, and we just have to deal with that. Reed now going defensive. I'll tell you why that is. Sorry, it's because it's not Eduardo Rodis at all. That was Norton Motta. Apologies for being completely wrong. That's what happens when you allow yourself to get distracted during a Grand Prix. But yeah, Ray Griffey-Owen here has had a great drive up into 5th position in this race. Only the 17th seeded driver just ahead of Walter Lux. And that is indeed Walter Lux. We're not going to be distracted by a faulty timing screen this time.
Yeah, Ray Griffey-Owen, of course, getting a SimSpeed Championship point at Mugello. Last time out, he is on course at the moment for 10 more than that, if he can get that in position. But Walter Lux has got the gap down to 0.7 of a second, and it will be a Herculean effort if he is to hold Walter Lux behind. So I doubt that this is going to be one which you sit down and go, yeah, that's going to be really easy to make. It's going to have to be all about the patience play heading forward. Got to look back, though, at Jacob Reed, because Norton Motta has just made his pass through, which will make life a little bit easier here and a little bit harder, you would argue, for Eduardo Rodis to close that gap, because Jacob Reed now will get the benefit of DRS being 1 second behind Norton Motta.
And we've got a slipstream here. Walter Lux gaining on Ray Griffey-Owen. Griffey-Owen has much older tyres, so this is a very likely move to pull right now. To the inside goes Lux. Through he goes, and he's just about gathered it up in time for the corner. Sometimes you mess it up, you leave the braking a little too late, and then you can't make it. But he's managed to get it turned in, and now Rodis has caught up to the back of Jacob Reed. See, this is what I thought we were looking at just a minute ago. Obviously, I can't tell the difference between green and red. I'm just going to pretend that I'm colorblind so that it makes a bit more sense. But yes, Rodis is now on the back of Jacob Reed, and he sees that rear wing towering right in front of him. Suddenly, you feel ever more like the hunter. And of course, the advantage for Rodis here, being on the medium tyres, is of course that they go off slower. They're less likely to hit the cliff, and when they do, it'll take them much longer to get to that stage. Jacob Reed, on the other hand, has been on these tyres for a decent amount of time, and this is why I was saying you've got to keep in mind that Reed's tyres might start to go off, because then Rodis gets the advantage.
1.4 seconds have been held up in this lap, and it continues on right now for Eduardo Rodis, who now desperately needs to find the pass here on Jacob Reed. Thinking about turn 1, backs out of it as close as he wants. He has to back out. Very nearly clobbers the back of Jacob Reed, and Eduardo Rodis, sensing how important this race is, that might have just been the moment that hands it to Darren Parker with 10 laps left.
Jacob Reed is really pushing this. He's really hanging it out. And Eduardo Rodis, I think, just needs to gather himself back up again and try again. They won't be particularly happy with Norton Motta right now. Neither of them will, because, as we see a replay of Rodis getting right to the tail of Parker, right to the tail of Reed, nearly lost the car. Gathered it up really well. The fact is, Norton's helping neither of them right now, because first of all, he passed Reed, which would have cost him time. And second of all, he's giving DRS to Reed, which is making it so that Rodis can't get past Jacob. So realistically, he's not doing anyone any favours, but he was faster, so he was well within his rights to go through, and in reality, he's not done anything wrong here. And now,
He's outside
of course,
second.
as he starts to get away, it means that Radice should be the only one with DRS and should have the advantage on the straight.
No DRS then here for Jacob Reed, and is this going to be a slam dunk? Right now, we're not too far from the Orlando Magic, and that was as easy as it comes for Eduardo Radice in terms of that pass. So he's got that through. He finds himself up into second, but it has cost him so much. Reed with a little half look, a last gasp attempt to show that he's still got the fighting spirit, but it is just going to be that, and now he's just got to settle in. 16 seconds, 9 laps to hold off Jordan Gronkowski, doing 32 sixes at the moment, 0.8 of a second a lap. As it stands, Jacob Reed is safe for the final spot on the podium.
We've still got a long way to go in this race, though. I know it only says 9 laps, but this is a very long track, and 9 laps on tyres that aren't really going your way anymore is going to be pretty painful. Now, he does have a decent advantage over Jordan Gronkowski, about 15 seconds as it currently stands. But Gronkowski, of course, is still pushing and is gaining, admittedly not as quickly as he would need to do. It's only by about half a second per lap. I'll be keeping an eye on that gap nonetheless. Walter Lux currently the driver with the fastest lap. And actually, the fastest driver on track that last time around was Darren Parker, who continues to extend his lead at the front. Here's Jacob Reed, definitely the most important driver in the race at the minute, because how he does in the last few laps can really determine how everyone else does and how they see this race at the end.
It's going to be all about the tyres and whether they go pop at the end. If one tyre goes, that is going to be that for Jacob Reed. He is gambling on his tyres, trying to find the end of this race. If he can keep the pace up, it is third position for him, a 34.2 though on that last lap. We'll see what Gronk can do to respond as he comes over the line. This time as he crosses, it looks like it is a 1:32.6. In fact, Gronk has just matched his time lap to lap. He's done 2 1:32.666s in a row.
Oh wow, that's almost spooky, especially with the latter part of that number, but there you go. So Jacob Reed continues to drop back. You can see it's 1.5 seconds there, which is what Parker was gaining on him before going through. So Reed's been struggling for a little while now. I'm more interested in the gap between himself and Gronkowski, since I think he's going to be a bit worried about the championship leader towards the end of this this particular race. But and there you see the advantage that some of these drivers have gained in this race. Darren Parker up 7 positions, so he started in 8th place in this race. I'd forgotten that, but yeah, this has been a great drive from Darren Parker. And of course, that's 8 places with completely equal cars. It's not like the fact that he's driving a Mercedes has given him an advantage. Everyone is in the Mercedes, I think it's the W13 EQ, if I remember correctly. And then, of course, you have extra positions gained as well for Ray Griffey-Owen, who's done a great job. Thomas Hinz as well, who unfortunately looks to be missing out on the points. Some of that's come through attrition, but for Darren Parker in particular, he's just had a really good drive.
Yeah, they're driving fantastically in those Mercedes W13E performances right now, putting everything together here in terms of what's needed. Jacob Reed knows that it's important here to take even a snippet of points away from Jordan Gronkowski here today. He would take 3 away. That 27-point gap at the top of the standings would come down to 24, making it mathematically possible that he could take the championship lead away at Imola in 2 weeks' time. With Jordan Gronkowski having, of course, that issue with George van Rensburg here today, that might be a really important moment in the context of the season. Jacob Reed having his own issue here today, but you've got to give a shout out to those drivers who are doing well. Nick Burke, George van Rensburg chasing him down for 7th place, having a great showcase, and Ray Griffey-Owen, what a run he has had today from 12th.
Yeah, I think this would be the best race of the season so far from Ray Griffey-Owen and George van Rensburg. And of course from Nick Burke, because this is the first race he's done in the top split this season. And there is Ray Griffey-Owen up up 6 positions, and he still continues to gain time. He's really not that far behind the likes of Walter Lux, although Lux did, of course, part him just a few laps ago. So that's not a battle that's likely to change hands anytime soon. There's Darren Parker still leading this race. The gap came down slightly to Eduardo Radice, who is going quickly, but nowhere near quick enough to gain in the last 6 laps today. And there's Eduardo Radice, the second-seeded driver, who's pushing hard, but not quite hard enough in these late stages.
Well, he's giving everything he can here. He's trying to keep Darren Parker honest, but his strategy has put him on the alternate compared to those around. Having to be on the mediums on the final stint was the one way he was hoping to get this race sorted. You couldn't have accounted for the one stop being so important today, and that has been the difference maker. The one-stop strategy was the way to go. And someone like Jordan Gronkowski here, it's 12 seconds, 6 laps to go. He's got to chase down 2 seconds a lap, which means he's got to be a second a lap quicker than what he is right now. There is nothing that he can do about it. And if he has to settle for 4th place, he's already done so once this season. So this is not the end of the world for Jordan Gronkowski. This is a long championship, the longest in iRacing. It runs all the way, of course, into the final month of the year. And you really get a sense that you have earned the World Tour title when you get to the end of the season. Still, though, we get the opportunities rolling. It is a very important 5 laps left in this race, and everybody is focused on the loads that have been going through the tyres of Jacob Reed. One wrong move on his tyres, and that could be all he wrote for this race. He is hoping that that tyre does not pop in a similar way to Silverstone.
Yeah, sorry about that. I just accidentally muted myself and forgot, but there you go. Jacob Reed running very wide in the hairpin. You can tell he does not have the turn-in that he did earlier on in the race, and you can see that on the times. Look at that, 32 laps so far. He'll be going 37 laps on the soft tyres, and I'm not sure that he would have expected to do that at the start of this race. I think that was an impulse decision as the race went along. Seems to be working out for him decently, still on course for a podium, and Gronkowski is not gaining on him quite quick enough. But you're right, the tyres can of course go pop if you're not careful, and that is something that iRacing simulates. Jacob Reed holding on for all that he's worth.
Non-finish, non-start. That's what Darren Parker's last 2 rounds of the championship have been. He is tied currently on 44 championship points with Walter Lux for 5th place. No Jorge Martinez here today. He's going to jump up and gain on him. Eduardo Radice is 6 points in the distance in terms of the championship. He is 1 place ahead of him, which is 7 championship points. If he is to finish and win this race with his 3rd podium of the season, Darren Parker will have sole possession of 3rd in the championship.
Darren Parker still leading the race by 8 seconds. The fastest driver on track right now is Thomas Hintz, according to the timing screen. Going very well a little further down the order, but of course still outside of the points. Looks as if the fastest lap point will go the way of Walter Lux, and deservedly so, even though he was only a couple of thousandths of a second faster than the laps set by the likes of Jordan Gronkowski. There is George van Rensburg chasing down Nick Burke, but 2 very bright, very distinctive liveries. That's always what we like to see, liveries that we can tell apart from each other at a glance. And these 2 I've been very impressed by so far in this one. 4 laps to go now. After a very long race, the drivers will be tired, they'll be shattered after having to hold on to these beasts, these 1,000+ horsepower beasts, over the curbs and the bumps for 51 laps, over an hour and a half of racing it's going to be by the end of this one. And hopefully everyone still has their wits about them, no mental fatigue setting in. You sometimes get that towards the end of a Grand Prix. Look at the precision that they're still able to deliver, though, corner after corner after corner.
They know they have to. It's the iRacing system, of course, where all these drivers realise it's a drive-through penalty at 17 instant points, and every 8 after that is another drive-through penalty. So they have to be within the lines, and this is what the hours of practice will constantly be for all of them. George van Rensburg taking 6/10 out of Nick Burke on that last lap for the first time over the line. Gets it down under 1 second with 3 laps to go. He does have a shot of that 7th place and an extra 2 championship points in the SimSpeed Championship in his back pocket. He's only had 1 point scoring round this season. That was at VIR, another American track, where, funnily enough, he had a 7th place finish, and that would also help him leapfrog himself into the top 10 conversation on 12 championship points if he can get the pass on Nick Burke.
Oh, we're hearing blown tyre. Is that for Jacob Reed? Who's that? Oh, and
Hey, look at it.
Oh, look at the front left. The front left is not looking healthy. Is it completely blown or is it just
That's
scratched?
gone. That is totally gone. And Jacob Reed now only a couple of laps away from the end of this race has had the front left tyre go, and he's going to try and hang on to it from now to the end of this race. This is huge right now as his tyre is gone. Jordan Gronkowski has a real shot here now of taking away 3rd in the final laps of this race.
He's still got a decent amount of grip. The car's still turning in for the corners, but you're right, it looks as if it's had a knife slash through it. And this is very reminiscent of Silverstone 2020, when Lewis Hamilton, of course, lost the front left and crept over the line to win the Grand Prix.
No, he can't turn.
And he's gone on. He's gone straight on. And Jacob Reed is in a lot of trouble here. He's still in 3rd place, just about. But do you think he should have pitted that last time around? He may still have got a top 5 if he did. No, he'd drop behind Nick Burke, wouldn't he? So obviously he's just in a bit of a denial at the minute, doesn't want to accept that his chances of the podium are over. But surely, even if he continues now, Gronkowski's going to get him on the road.
Look, he's going to have some grip, but not enough. This is where Jordan Gronkowski has got to channel all the years of experience that he's had out there in the real world. What has got him some incredible trophies out there in the world of the UK racing scene. Now he knows that with a lap to go, this is more than just an extra 3 championship points, a 6-point championship swing. This is mental. This is all about how can I take a little bit more out of Jacob Reed's psyche and then decide to twist the knife when it gets over to Imola 2 weeks from today. You get a real sense that for Jordan Gronkowski, this is important through turn 1. He will sense that every corner is an opportunity, and that gap at 1.4 seconds as Nick Burke just about holds on to George van Rensburg, that this is all about who's got what. Watch that gap tumble again and again and again. He lost 5 seconds on the lap, and this is the corner where Jacob Reed had the trouble, and he tippy-toes through this corner with no drive through. Look at Gronk. He is right there, and this is a big moment in the early stages of this season. This is such a huge moment. On the brakes to Cunningham Corner, Jacob Reed just about holds it off. How will he be able to defend Sunset Bend at the end of this race? That's going to be crucial. Over to the Tower Corner. Reed still able to hold, but we got to go to Darren Parker because his Miami Vice is that everybody else has been stopping him from winning. He finally breaks that duck. It's Darren Parker who wins here at Sebring. It will be Eduardo Radice who will come home 2nd, and we must look back for 3rd because Jacob Reed now, with the almightiest of Herculean efforts, has to stop Jordan Gronkowski from throwing a Hail Mary. Oh, what a pass! Oh, what a pass! Oh, Jordan Gronkowski! Oh, you thief in the night! Oh, what a steal!
Oh, I knew he was going to get it. Reed just had no grip on that last lap. You saw it in the hairpin. And we're going to get a move, are we, from George van Rensburg on Nick Burke as he goes to the outside of the final turn. That one not quite as successful. Gets run out to dry. So it's going to be Lux 5th, then Griffey Owen, then Burke, and then Van Rensburg. But you're absolutely right. Jordan Gronkowski through like a thief in the night. But Jacob Reed, you have to say, kind of handed it to him.
Wow, it was a gamble. He pitted on lap 15 of this race and tried to go 36 laps on a set of soft compound tyres. It was madness. He went 34 and the tyre went. And all of a sudden, that is a major moment in the context of this season. Darren Parker will take his first race win in 2 years as he gets it done here today at Sebring in a time of 1 hour, 19 minutes and 47 seconds. He will win by 7 over Eduardo Radice with a fantastic podium display for him, and Jordan Gronkowski on the last corner of the last lap will send a consummate message to Jacob Reed with that final lap move at Sunset Bend, and that might be a moment we look back on in the championship should we get to the Hockenheim ring at the end of the season. Jacob Reed will take 4th with Walter Lux 5th and Ray Griffioen with a fantastic 6th place finish. Nick Burke would end up 7th with George van Rensburg unable to make the pass in 8th place. Michel Rudeau 9th, and Florian Kameyer will round out the top 10, an all-important point for him, the German driver. Ken Nielsen had himself a number of issues today, one of which with Anthony Catt, another of which with Jacob Reed. He'll finish outside the points and the last finisher on the lead lap. Lap down drivers include Thomas Hins, Norton Motter, Paul O'Regan and Jason Green. 3 retirees today from this race, which were Mark Van Dalen, Anthony Catt and Adam Webb, finding retirements here from Sebring. But we'll take another look at the moment where the tyre decided to go, and it's going to be a case of where you can see it was bolting a little bit, bang, there it went, as sudden as you like, and then he is scrambling for a bit of grip.
It's incredible that he managed to hold on to it. That tyre has seen so many better days than this. And you can see that he's really struggling in those right-handers in particular. Next time, though, we go to a corner that is pretty much all left-handers. The Autodromo Internazionale Enzo E. Ferrari, better known, of course, as Imola. A very different track to Sebring, at a very different bit of the world, but still just as classic, just as revered in so many ways. And I'm really looking forward to that one if it's anything like today.
This is my favourite circuit of them all. There is no truer driving experience getting it right than getting it done at Imola. And there, of course, the display of Ayrton Senna on a truly memorable week, of course, where we remember 30 years since that incident on May the 1st, 1994, where Ayrton Senna tragically lost his life the day after Roland Ratzenberger lost his life during qualifying. What, though, an important victory it was today for Darren Parker. But although it's not for the win, although it's not for second, what a message sent by Jordan Gronkowski. The Scotsman says to the Worcesterman, I say this now. This is my season. This is my championship lead. You are going to have to perform heroics to try and get that off of me. It's Darren Parker who will say, I will chase you both down. But Jordan Gronkowski sends a message in the iRacing Grand Prix World Tour. We will see you in 2 weeks' time here at SimSpeed TV, because when we come back to you, it will be Imola, round 7, and it will be a back-to-back when we come back with Long Beach on the horizon too.